Beneath the sands of Asia's driest desert, something impossible is happening. Water, billions of liters, flowing through pipelines across scorched, lifeless earth. Trees are taking root in soil biologists declared dead just 2 decades ago. Groundwater tables, sinking for a generation, are slowly rising again. Seawater drawn from the ocean is being pumped deep underground into the desert floor, far from any coast. This is either the greatest engineering feat or the most audacious gamble ever placed against geography itself. Geography teachers have repeated the same line for generations. Water determines where people live. Rivers built civilizations. Deserts ended them. The Sahara, the Gobi, the Taklamakan. These names have always meant limits, places where human settlement stops because life itself becomes impossible. China has decided to redraw those limits. Northern China is a paradox, home to massive population, the capital Beijing, vast agricultural plains, yet sitting in a structurally water-deficient climatic zone. The Yellow River, once called the lifeblood of northern China, had in some years failed to reach the sea at all. It simply dried up, drained dry by relentless human demand. For decades, the stopgap was brutal: drill deeper, pump harder. But groundwater is not infinite, and as the water table fell, the ground began to give way. Beijing was literally sinking, several centimeters a year in some districts. Buildings cracked, pipes ruptured. This was geological reality unfolding in slow motion. At the same time, the Gobi Desert was advancing steadily toward China's population centers. Dust storms reached Beijing, Seoul, and even Japan. Desertification was a humanitarian emergency. China was staring down a fundamental equation: population growing, industry expanding, water demand rising, but water supply shrinking. When that equation fails long enough, the entire system collapses. The first answer was the South-to-North Water Diversion Project, the largest water infrastructure undertaking in human history. 3 transfer routes spanning more than 4,000 kilometers combined. The eastern route follows the ancient Grand Canal, modernized for industrial-scale transfer. The central route crosses mountain ranges, bridges rivers, tunnels through rock toward the parched north. Each year, tens of billions of cubic meters flow northward. More than 140 million people depend directly on this system. It has helped stabilize groundwater and slow the sinking of Beijing. But moving fresh water from the south is not an infinite solution. Southern China has its own populations and ecosystems that depend on that same water. A different source had to be found. The next logical reservoir covers 71% of the planet's surface, the oceans. An estimated 1.335 billion cubic kilometers of seawater exists on Earth. The problem: it is salty. When oil is extracted, pressure in the formation drops. The industry's solution is enhanced oil recovery, injecting fluid back underground to maintain pressure. Traditionally, that fluid is fresh water. China's answer was seawater. Seawater is chemically aggressive. It corrodes ordinary steel within months, carries microorganisms that form blockages, and behaves very differently from fresh water. Chinese engineers spent years solving these problems. The result was corrosion-resistant composite materials, advanced pressure management systems, and biological filtration requiring no constant on-site staff. In 2025, China began constructing a 950-kilometer pipeline to pump seawater from the Persian Gulf into Iraqi oil fields, an industrial-scale real-world proof of concept for scalable desert deployment. The project increases Iraqi oil field yields and frees fresh water for human use. For China, it is real-world research proving that seawater pipeline technology can be built larger and deployed globally. The Taklamakan, the name translates as "you go in, but you do not come out." It is the largest sand desert in Asia, temperatures swinging from -30 in winter to +50 in summer. China has decided to fence this desert in, not with metal or concrete, but with trees. The Green Great Wall forms part of the 3 North Shelter Belt program, running since the 1970s. More than 3,000 kilometers of vegetation surrounds the desert's edge, a living barrier built primarily from the Saxal bush, a plant that survives almost anything and anchors shifting dunes. The Saxal loses little moisture through evaporation, sends deep roots into shifting dunes, and tolerates salt that would kill most other species. It is not beautiful, but it does precisely what it must. Enabling technology is drip irrigation, narrow tubing, running directly to individual plant root zones, delivering water drop by drop, computer-controlled, calibrated precisely to demand. Efficiency is everything. Every liter lost to evaporation before reaching a root is wasted in a system where waste is not affordable. Water arrives from mountain meltwater, groundwater, and long-distance transfer. When sand stops moving, something quiet and then remarkable happens. Slowly, organic material accumulates. Microorganisms begin breaking it down. A rudimentary soil layer begins to form. Scientists monitoring the Taklamakan have observed something surprising. Biodiversity is returning. Bird species never before seen there are nesting in the Sahel. Insects appear. Small mammals move in. This is not a miracle. It is biology operating exactly as it always has. Where plants exist, plant eaters follow. Where organic material accumulates, decomposers arrive. Nature needs only conditions in which to begin. The Sahel belt is not self-sustaining. If irrigation stops, the trees die and sand resumes moving. This is a permanent human-operated commitment requiring continuous attention and resources in perpetuity. Water scarcity is one of the most underestimated crises of the 21st century. The Sahel, the Middle East, Central Asia, North Africa, all share one equation: too little water, too many people. China's technology, water transfer engineering, seawater pipeline systems, desert revegetation methods, is not merely a Chinese solution. It is a toolkit other regions of the world may urgently need. Can Chinese technology help globally? In theory, yes. In practice, it is complicated. These projects function because a centralized state with enormous resources and long planning horizons can force them into existence. Financing is another obstacle. The South-to-North project costs tens of billions of dollars. Taklamakan revegetation requires substantial funding every single year. For poor countries in the Sahel, those figures are unrealistic without support. Diverting the Yangtze raises real ecological costs. Disrupted wetland habitats, affected fish populations, displaced communities. There are no cost-free solutions, only choices about which costs are acceptable to bear. The history of civilization has always been the history of adaptation to geographic limits. Deserts were avoided because they were incompatible with survival. Rivers became the foundations of everything. What China demonstrates is that these limits, while real, are not absolute. Technology, determination, and sufficient resources cannot eliminate geography, but they can push it far enough to secure hundreds of millions of lives. Whether it is sustainable, replicable, or reflects the right priorities, these are legitimate questions with no simple answers. But whether it is remarkable has only one answer: unambiguously. Yes, whether the Sahel, the Middle East, and Central Asia should be studying these methods has an equally clear answer: they cannot afford not to. The largest problems facing humanity rarely receive the attention they deserve.